new NFL season is upon us, and we all know that this means it's time to make our predictions. In today's video, we will be going through every team in the NFL and predicting their end of season record. I can't wait to be wrong about half of these when the season is over. What is going on, everybody? It's Sportsmaster here, and we got another fun video today. NFL predictions are always fun to do, even though they're rarely ever accurate. But I will make my best attempt at trying to accurately predict the records of every team in the NFL. Let's go division by division, starting with the AFC East. Last year, the Buffalo Bills were one of the best teams in the league, but their poor play against the Bengals made them burn out of the playoffs. The roster has remained relatively similar this year, and they had a solid draft. There was offseason drama around Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. Apparently there's some personal issues between them, which head coach Doug McDermott said were solved, but you never know what could be happening behind the scenes. However, at the end of the day, Diggs and Allen are fierce competitors, and I'm sure they can put their differences aside and have a solid year. Despite everything going on with the Bills and this division gaining some serious talent, I still have the Bills as the 1 seed in the division at 12-5. They're the most proven team with the best quarterback in the division. One quick note before we keep going, I do want to say I'm not trying to make this video too long. Nobody wants to see somebody predicting records for every team in the NFL for like an hour. So I'm trying to make this quick, just quickly summarize the team and then move forward. So next, we have the New England Patriots. Other than the fact that they picked up Christian Gonzalez in the draft, they don't have much going for them. Mac Jones isn't the long-term answer for the Patriots, and this will probably be another year of mediocrity for them. Of course, it is the Patriots, so I'm sure they will steal some wins, but their division is really difficult. I have them finishing 7-10. There are a lot of unknowns with the Miami Dolphins entering the season, but as long as they can stay healthy, I think they should be fine this year. They do have a relatively difficult schedule, facing teams like the Eagles and Chiefs, and obviously the Jets and Bills twice each. The Dolphins are still an explosive team, and they still have Tyreek Hill, who said some things in the offseason that probably worried some people.
I'm going for 10, man. I'm gonna finish out this contract with the Dolphins, man, and then I'm gonna call it quits.
But nonetheless, I think this team will finish 10-7 and have a good chance at making the playoffs. Now let's talk about probably the hottest team in the NFL right now. It seems as though a lot of people have different opinions about the Jets. I think they have the talent to win, but it's about if they can put it all together. We've seen Aaron Rodgers win games without significant wide receiver depth, but we'll have to see if he can do it this year with a new organization. This team seems very polarizing right now, but I'm just going to play it safe and say that they will also finish 10-7. However, I think that the Dolphins will have the tiebreaker over them, winning both games versus the Jets. Therefore, the AFC East will look like this, with the Dolphins as the 2 seed and the Jets as the 3 seed. The Jets seem like they have a good chance at making the playoffs, but we will have to see if the talented AFC has any room for them. Let's move on to the AFC West, another very interesting division with a lot of talent. Let's start with the Kansas City Chiefs, because I'm sure everyone agrees that this team will be outstanding this year no matter what the circumstances are, as long as they can stay healthy, of course. There isn't really much to be said about the Chiefs, and I think they will finish as the 1 seed in the division, but I think it will be a close race between them and the Chargers. I have the Chiefs finishing 12-5. Let's move on to the Denver Broncos, which is a team that needs to turn it around this year. They got Sean Payton, and the team is still talented, so I feel like it comes down to if Russell Wilson can have a comeback season. I think it'll be hard for Russ to completely turn it around from last year, but I think he will be considerably better. Their schedule isn't too hard, but I don't think it's easy enough for them to make a huge playoff push. But you never know. I wouldn't be too surprised if the Broncos sneaked into the playoffs, but I just don't think it'll happen. I have the Broncos at 8-9, missing the playoffs by just a couple games. The Las Vegas Raiders have studs on both sides of the ball, and I think they are flying under the radar this season. Jimmy Garoppolo has a track record of winning a lot of games when he has a good running back in the backfield, and Josh Jacobs is coming off of a stellar season. And I know some people are going to hate me for this, but I think the Raiders are a serious threat to make the playoffs. But it'll be difficult because of how good the AFC is. Their schedule is also somewhat favorable, so I have the Raiders at 10-7, which ties them with the Jets and Dolphins. I know some people are going to be questioning that I have the Raiders above the Broncos, but again, it's just a prediction. Most of this stuff won't even come true anyway. We're just having fun out here. So don't flame me for it. But if you do disagree, let me know in the comment section below. I'll be replying to all the comments down there. So yeah, the Raiders being this good might be one of my hottest takes in this video, but I see the potential with the team. There are multiple teams that have a chance at snagging a wildcard spot, but I think a team that is a lock for a wildcard spot is the Los Angeles Chargers. Early in the offseason, they added a lot of talent to the team, and they had a good draft adding Quentin Johnston to the team. If Justin Herbert can play consistently well, and if he has some solid pass protection this year, the Chargers will be great. It might be hard for them to keep up with Kansas City for the division title, but I have them finishing only one game off. I have them finishing with a record of 11-6, guaranteeing them a spot in the playoffs. Let's move on to the AFC South, which might be the worst division in the NFL. But it is a super interesting one. Let's start with the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence should continue to get better, and I have a good feeling that they will win this division. However, despite the division not being the strongest, I expect them to suffer a few losses to some division rivals and other strong teams in the conference, such as the Bills and the Chiefs. So I have the Jags at 9-8. The Titans are in an interesting spot after adding DeAndre Hopkins to the team. However, a lot of people are down on them entering the season. But I do have some high expectations for this team. They have a formula to win with Derrick Henry in the backfield, and now they have a star receiver to replace the loss of A.J. Brown last year. I have the Titans at 9-8, tying them with the Jaguars. Unfortunately, I think the Jaguars will have the tiebreaker, and that will be the difference between making and missing the playoffs. So the Titans will have a good season, but won't be able to beat out the Jaguars for the division title. But let's move on to the Texans. Texans fans finally have something to be excited about, which is something they couldn't say for the past few years. Rookie quarterback CJ Stroud might struggle to start the year, but I think he can start to pick things up as the weeks go by. Overall, the Texans might just be tanking again this year, but they have some great young talent. I have the Texans finishing 6-11, potentially stealing some wins if CJ Stroud can play well. Finally, we have the Indianapolis Colts. This team wouldn't be very interesting if they didn't have Anthony Richardson. I think Richardson has the capability to single-handedly will the Colts to a few extra wins, but he might also cost them some wins. Jonathan Taylor also wants out of Indy, which isn't necessarily going to help them. I have the Colts finishing 5-12 on the year, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do a little better than that. Okay, now we are moving on to the final division in the AFC, which is of course the AFC North. The success of the Cleveland Browns really lies on the shoulders of Deshaun Watson, and I'm not betting on him after last year. The Browns have the capability to win games and their schedule isn't too difficult, but I just don't see that much potential in them. I have them finishing 7-10. This might be a surprise because I know some people are really high on the Browns, but I'm not. The Pittsburgh Steelers are still a young team, and Kenny Pickett showed flashes last year, but he is still growing as a player. Just because they have Mike Tomlin as their head coach, I feel like it guarantees them at least 6 or 7 wins, so I have them finishing 7-10 as well. But this is where it really gets interesting. First of all, I have the Bengals finishing 13-4 as the 1 seed in the division. There are no signs pointing towards a downfall of the Bengals this year, other than the Joe Mixon situation, but regardless, the team is very talented and they have a very high ceiling in the regular season and the playoffs. And I think that the Bengals will just narrowly beat out the Baltimore Ravens for the division title. The Ravens have found ways to win games in the past with a solid run game and the electrifying game of Lamar Jackson. A lot of people have been counting this team out, but I expect some big things from them. They have a somewhat favorable schedule, and I think they might be able to recapture some of the success that they had a few years ago. I have the Ravens finishing 11-6, which clinches them a spot in the playoffs. And that's the AFC. What a talented conference. We have 6 of our 7 playoff spots filled, and the last spot is between the Raiders, Dolphins, and Jets, who all tied at 10-7. I think that this spot will go to the Dolphins. I think they will go 2-0 versus the Jets, as I said earlier, and will have a better conference record than the Raiders because the Raiders have to face the Chargers and Chiefs twice each, which will hinder their record. So this is the AFC's end of season standings, and it looks similar to last year's standings, but I can assure you that the NFC will look a lot different. I know I said that the AFC South might be the worst division in the NFL, but that title probably goes to the NFC South. There's literally not a single playoff caliber team in the division, but one of them has to win. I have the Carolina Panthers winning this race of mediocrity. They've completely changed their skill position players, mostly for the better, and I expect Bryce Young to be the best rookie quarterback this season. Despite the team not looking amazing, they should be good enough to win the division. However, I don't see this team having a winning record because the team just isn't that great. I have them finishing 8-9. Offensively, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the same team they were last year, just without Tom Brady, which kind of makes a difference. They also lost a few pieces defensively, which will hurt them a lot. I think that the Bucs will finish last in this division, and they show the least potential in having a great year. I have the Bucs finishing at 5-12. I got the Saints finishing second in this division. Derek Carr should be a consistent quarterback option for them, which is something they haven't had in a long time, but I just don't think he's good enough to lead them to the playoffs. I have the Saints at 7-10. Finally, in this terrible division, we have the Atlanta Falcons, who a lot of people see potential in, but I have them finishing third in the division. And the only interesting thing about their team to me is the duo of Desmond Ridder and Bijan Robinson. I expect big things out of Bijan, but I just don't think this team is good enough to compete. I have them ending the year with a record of 6-11. I think it's time to move on to a division with a lot more talent than the NFC South, so let's go to the NFC West, because this division has some serious potential. But let's start from the bottom. The Arizona Cardinals don't have too much going for them on day one because Kyler Murray is likely not going to play for the first part of the season and possibly even longer. When Murray does come back, there still isn't much with this team. James Conner is solid and Marquise Brown and Zach Ertz are great, but it really depends on if Kyler can come back from the injury the same way he was before. The defense is not bad, but the team just isn't that impressive. I have them finishing at 7-10. The rest of this division looks really promising. I think people are sleeping on the Rams, who will hopefully have a fully healthy team this year. The San Francisco 49ers still look good, and it'll be interesting to see what Brock Purdy does as the day one starter. The Seahawks have improved their team by adding some key pieces, such as Jackson Smith-Njigba, to go alongside Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So who's going to win the division? This one might come as a surprise, but I got the Seahawks winning this division at 11-6. I have the 49ers following close behind at 10-7, and despite what I said about the Rams, I don't know if they can put together another complete season like they did a couple of years ago, and I have them finishing 8-9. I have faith in Geno Smith following up his season from last year, and it feels weird to have them over a team so talented on both sides of the ball, but I just have a feeling that the 49ers might lose a couple of tough games if Brock Purdy can't make the necessary plays to win. But that's the NFC West. Let's move on to the NFC North. Now this division is just mid. For the first time in a while, I feel like the Detroit Lions are the favorite to win this division. And that's what I think is going to happen. I have them finishing 10-7. The Lions added Jahmyr Gibbs, which was viewed as one of the worst picks of the draft, but he is a versatile running back to replace DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Last year, Jared Goff showed us that he is a decent quarterback and can make plays when necessary, which is probably all the Lions need to win games. Now, some of you may be surprised that I have the Vikings at 10-7 as well. This team is really talented, just as they were last year, and they should be able to win a lot of games, especially in this relatively weak division. The Bears and Packers are both in similar positions, as both teams are rebuilding and hoping for their young quarterbacks to develop. One of these QBs might burst onto the scene this year, but that is just hard for me to see. I have both the Packers and Bears finishing at 6-11. And here we are with the final division. The division that went from the NFC least to possibly the most talented division in the NFC. Let's start on a high note with the Philadelphia Eagles, who from top to bottom have probably the most impressive roster in the NFL. However, they do have the hardest schedule in the NFL, which is a clear attempt by the league to try and hold back this unstoppable team. I have them finishing 13-4 despite having a difficult schedule. Another team with probably a top 5 roster in the NFL is the Dallas Cowboys. They have great depth and a well-rounded team on both sides of the ball. The question is, will Dak Prescott once again hold this team back? In the regular season, I think they should be fine, and they have been consistent in the regular season in the past, so I think 11-6 is a safe prediction for them. But based on the playoff bracket, we will have to see if they can make a push at the Super Bowl. Of course, we still have to talk about the Commanders and Giants. The Giants found a way to retain Saquon Barkley, which means they have a chance to win games. Daniel Jones can only take them so far, however, so I have them finishing 8-9, as they have a somewhat difficult schedule, but a great coaching staff and some talented players. I don't really want to spend too much time talking about the Commanders, as we definitely saved the worst for last. Terry McLaurin will get his 1,200 receiving yards because he is simply that good, but the rest of the team is just not that good at all. I have them finishing 3-14, which might seem harsh, but they just don't have much going for them. So yes, I literally saved the worst for last. I predict that the Washington Commanders will be the worst team in the NFL next season. I'm sorry, Commanders fans. Before we end this video, let's quickly take a look at these conferences. The AFC looks pretty similar to how it was last year. I think that the Browns and Broncos have serious potential to surprise some people, but I had to be realistic and go with the teams that are already proven to make the playoffs. The NFC has some teams that we saw last year, but the Panthers, Lions, and Seahawks winning their respective divisions is something that obviously didn't happen in 2022. The AFC is much more stacked than the NFC this year. Teams like the Bucs and Packers won't be anywhere near as good as they were last year, whereas the AFC is filled with young quarterbacks and teams that have a lot of potential. There are some teams from both conferences that could possibly shock some people if they have solid quarterback play, but it's hard to predict how young quarterbacks will do in their first few years. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button. If you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button and check out some of my other videos. I'm thinking of doing a hot takes video, so let me know if you want to see that in the comment section below. I'll have new videos out throughout the entire NFL season, but that's it for this one, and I'll see you all in the next video.